President Obama started with a much weaker economy than I did. Listen to me now. No president, not me, not any of my predecessors, no one could have fully repaired all the damage that he found in just 4 years.
Guys, if Bill Clinton's speech stole the show in Charlotte this week, it might have been that line that was the best sales pitch of all for President Obama. How effective was he, and do you think that's going to resonate with voters?
I'm not sure the last part, Andrew, but I know that the room and afterwards, it was like, finally, somebody he did a better job about explaining Obamacare than the president himself did, who authored it, and he owns it. He explained the realities of looking at a scorecard, Democrats, Republicans, who's created more jobs under their watches. What was the economy when Obama inherited versus where it is now? Who was against, bailing out Detroit here, and how many jobs did that save? You can go down the list. You guys saw it like I did. But as many people were moved and fired up by it, the next question came, why hasn't the president said this? God knows the president, Obama's smart enough. He knows the numbers well enough. I don't know the personality part of it, but for me, Dominic, there was as much an open question of, I thought if I was going to orchestrate it, the president should defend his own record and have somebody else, in this case, President Clinton, do a little bit of it, but also really go more into the other plan and the flaws with it, whatever. Obama outsourced basically the nuts and bolts to Bill Clinton, and I thought that was the most significant testimonial as to what happened in these last 4 years and really the last 12 years,
Outsource is an excellent word because that's exactly what happened. You would think that, given that Obama sold the country on hope and change, I still remember Denver, the stadium and so on. Hope and change. You're right, Richard.
Don't forget the Gothic columns.
That's right. The columns and so on. As the day was ending and night was coming in, the president should be out there selling this, as Richard said, himself. And for example, now I follow politics. Most people don't. The auto bailout in Detroit. It's the first time I've really heard the Democrats talk about it. Jobs in many states.
And look how the crowd reacted, Doug.
Yes.
The biggest crowd reaction of the night went to, wait a minute, they paid the money back. Millions of Americans still have their jobs because they did it. And the other side didn't want to do it. Why is that complicated? But somehow, some way, it took Bill Clinton and Jennifer Granholm to really hit it out of the park here for this to become an issue again. It's almost like gay marriage. Remember that? It was almost by accident that became a platform issue again.
But Clinton was able to provide the context that, you know what, even I couldn't fix everything to the way we like it in just one term. Speaking of President Obama, one of his more memorable moments.
We don't think the government can solve all of our problems, but we don't think that the government is the source of all of our problems, any more than our welfare recipients or corporations or unions or immigrants or gays or any other group we're told to blame for our troubles.
It may not have been the greatest speech of his career, but certainly a good defense of his...
I think maybe I presented that I thought he did very well. Okay, I thought he did better comparatively. I mean, you were there in Tampa, but I thought he did better than the Republican nominee that night. There was passion. He connected with the audience. They wanted him to really do well. Not in spite of it, because they really still buy it. I just questioned, there was optic issues in Tampa that you ran into. I just questioned, we're still talking after the convention about Bill Clinton. And shouldn't it be that we're talking about the nominee? Maybe it's too inside baseball, but that's what stuck with me. And I think there was a little bit of buyer's remorse here when they were talking about the Clintons and Hillary. You kept hearing that, So overall, a good convention for the Democrats. What would you guess? I think they get a bump out of this thing.
My guess is that they definitely will receive a bump, at least 2 or 3 percentage points. But I don't know how much that really matters going forward. It'll give them some momentum. One thing I will say about the convention you were at, finally some life. Yeah. Finally we saw some life. And when Deval Patrick said Democrats, what was his line? Grow a backbone?
Grow a backbone, yeah.
Fantastic. And I think that most Democrats, I think that's enough that, and Sandra Fluck, her speech was outstanding.
But there was even stuff that you didn't really see there. The videos that they had, Andrew. And I thought, by the way, in Tampa, the best part of the convention were those personal stories that they shared about him that the general wants to hear. But the stories of the kid with cancer that without this care wouldn't probably be here now. The story of veterans who've lost limbs here, but what happened in terms of their units staying with them, taking on fire to do it, and more and more. But then there was the stuff like James Taylor. You had Mary J. Blige. I mean, there was an energy in the room. You know what I mean? You were right, Dominic, and you felt it there. I don't know if it came across on TV, but people wanted to be there. I didn't always get the sense in Tampa they did.
If it wasn't the greatest speech for President Obama, certainly one Obama did have a very memorable speech.
If farmers and blacksmiths could win independence from an empire, if immigrants could leave behind everything they knew for a better life on our shores, if women could be dragged to jail for seeking the vote, if a generation could defeat a depression and define greatness for all time, if a young preacher could lift us to the mountaintop with his righteous dream, and if proud Americans can be who they are and boldly stand at the altar with who they love, then surely we can give everyone in this country a fair chance at that great American dream.
Now, in Tampa, everybody said that Ann Romney really enhanced her husband's campaign. Did Michelle Obama overshadow her husband?
I don't think, you know, I always hear that when people say overshadow. I think people look at speeches individually. I mean, we might talk that what stood out, and the first two names might be the First Lady and Bill Clinton. But I really thought hers was more of, instead of talking up her husband, talking up the America that she wants. And she didn't necessarily, she could have given an address here without being the spouse, you know what I mean? And I think she kind of spoke to that, humanized it, talked about family, talked about her personal family, and about, you know, the one thing you got out of that was how many people had to rely on Pell Grants and student loans here. And you know what I mean? And how many of their dads had to go through the GI Bill. And programs that you have to really work at to say are bad for America, but they put them in real human context. And she was one of them, talking about her family struggles. And I thought that, more so than my husband's a great guy, I think that made people say, wait a minute, government isn't all bad, is it?
You know, Richard, one thing that I want you to set straight for me. You were only, what, about 25 yards away from the First Lady in terms of
more than that.
Okay,
we were nosebleeds, but we weren't.
Okay, but you weren't that far away. What I'm curious about, on television, it looked like she almost became emotional several times. Did you get that feeling being right there in the convention hall, the stadium?
There were times where a couple of speakers, got the catch in the throat a little bit. She plays well on TV. You know what I mean? Some people can give a good speech, but then you get the cameras on, it doesn't deliver well. You got the idea that if the prompter went on, or this is my always threshold, if the prompter went out, could she have still done it? She could have still done it. And to me, she was telling the story of her family, you know, and in the picture she has, like I said, for the country, I thought she did a nice job. You
always need one speaker at these conventions who's just going to light the place up. We certainly got that from a former Michigan governor.
Sure. Mitt Romney loves our lakes and our trees. He loves our cars so much they even have their own elevator. But the people who design and build and sell those cars, well, in Romney's world, the cars get the elevator and the workers get the shaft.
I've heard her talk before. I never really remembered her that vividly being good. They went nuts, Andrew, for it. And I interviewed her after the address as well. And I said, who wrote the line? And she said, I got a little help with it. She at least admitted that. But I think if they listened to this thing, if the handlers listened, and 60 days isn't a long time, certainly in a convention when they're going to be living in Florida and Ohio, as we talked about. But if they talk about, you middle-class guy, this guy says, you know, turn out the lights, Detroit. And they were there, and as a consequence, we got paid back the money, and millions of people have jobs as a consequence when you figure out the daisy chain of all the suppliers, and I know you know this, Andrew, but it worked.
And she rattled off the states, too. You know, 20,000 jobs in Indiana, 50,000 jobs in Ohio, and went through, and the whole room lit up.
Definitely, definitely.
Definitely worked, motivated the base, can energize the base, and that's been one of the problems that the president is facing. Will his base be enthusiastic to turn out? I think based on this convention, the answer is a resounding yes.
I want to tell you, Dominic, they all said off camera, and some on camera, that they know they're going to be so outspent in the next 2 months. All the ad time's been bought up. We're not going to see these spots. They're going to be running in all the swing states here. And they know that's coming. But they think, they really believe, they've got a ground game here that maybe isn't as good as 4 years ago, but it's almost as good. They really think they're going to get turnout here. It's going to be organized. They got lawyers fanned out to every state with these voter ID laws. So we'll see.
Rich, thanks for hustling back to join us. We'll have you on the program again soon.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that.
When we come back, we're going to sit down with a conservative government strategist to compare and contrast the RNC and the DNC. But before we go, Rich, there was a moment you thought that some people may have missed that really deserved to be in the spotlight.
I like that he let me have one more soundbite. Thank you, Andrew. I got to play my cards right if I come back. I will tell you, he chose not to go to the arena here. He chose to do this in the tent, frankly, just for the New York delegation. But there was a speech, and if you don't even have to read between the lines, you could say some motivations for somebody with a national platform. Dominic knows where I'm going with this. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo. Huge poll ratings in New York here, and one would think an eye on a possible Washington future himself. He gave an address to the New York delegates, and you got an idea that this is a speech that we might hear more than a few times between now and the next election. He's got a lot of folks talking about possible 2016 run. Take a listen.
These are binary choices. This is a yes or a no to these questions. There is no maybe to these questions. They are stark options. We're going to go to this nation and we're going to say, do you believe in the politics of inclusion? Do you believe in fairness for all? Do you believe that the opportunity for all that this nation was founded on is still alive and well? And our answer is yes. We're going to go to this nation and we're going to say, do you believe that when we are at our best, we are all in a spirit of community and the community cares for each other? And do you believe in interconnection, and do you believe in interrelation? And do you believe that I am connected to you, to you, to you, and there's a cord that connects us all, and that cord weaves a fabric? And when one of us is raised, we are all raised. And when one of us is lowered, we are all lowered. Do you believe that the sweetest success is shared success? When we all do well, do you believe that when I invest in your child's education, I am investing in my child's education? And do you believe that we can make it all together, leaving no one behind? And that the best is ahead. Do you believe that, America? Do you believe that education is the ladder to opportunity and we're going to keep college loans affordable? Do you believe that we have an obligation to our seniors and we're going to protect their health care? Do you believe that in this country no one should be allowed to sleep on the street? There should be no homeless, and we won't allow them to cut the housing assistance. Are you proud to be New Yorkers? Are you proud of the New York tradition? Are you proud of what we're doing in New York? Are we going to bring New York home for the next president of the United States, Barack Obama? Thank you, and God bless you.